guys, and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Wendy. My husband and I are part-time resellers on eBay. This week's video is going to be what sold for the first week of January 2022. So let's dive in. All right, the first item that sold is a men's yellow Ralph Lauren button-up shirt. We had purchased this at a garage sale and I paid $1. It sold for asking price of $27.99. The next item was something that we picked up in the Goodwill bins or the Goodwill outlet. We pay by the pound when we go to the Goodwill outlet, and we usually will just count up how many items we purchased and then divide that by, then have the price that we paid for everything, divide that by the number of items and average out our cost per item that way. So we had averaged out the cost of our items that day at 92 cents. So we said that we paid 92 cents for this item, and it was a plush Grinch doll. It's sold after Christmas. We actually sell Christmas stuff all year round, and they had paid full asking price of $12.99 for it. The next item had been in our store for a long time. It was a White House Black Market, kind of a Moroccan print women's shirt that I had gotten at a local thrift store. I had paid $3 for it, and it sold on offer to buyer for $14.38. And White House Black Market doesn't sell very well for us, so I'm not really picking it up very often anymore unless it's something like really special, like a leather jacket or something like that, that because of the style, I think it would sell. But just a regular blouse like that, I definitely wouldn't pick up again. Next item was a Monster High replacement. It was a little accessory that went with the doll. It was a mason drink jar that went with the doll Rebecca Steam, and it was this tiny little thing. It was like this big, and we found it in the Goodwill bins. And so our cost of goods on that was 92 cents, and it sold on best offer for $9. It's a miracle that we found it in the bins, and it's a miracle that we made it home with it. But it sold really, really quickly because I'm sure everybody lost it. That thing was tiny. Next up was a great sale. It was a vintage, new in package, new old stock Sears bedspread. It was like a burnt orange color. If I had to guess, it didn't have a date on it, but if I had to guess, it would probably be from like the late 70s, early 80s. And we had gotten that at a garage sale for $1. They actually had two of them, and we already sold the other one too. I think it sold in December. This one sold on best offer for $100, and we had paid $1 for it. And this particular garage sale, I don't think there's anything else in this what sold video, but next week there will be. And we have just made a killing on this garage sale. It was like probably goes on record as the best garage sale we have ever been to, profit-wise. Next up is a Buzz Cuts youth sweater, and I don't know how this got in the cart at the Goodwill. It sold for $10, and we paid $1.41. So the truth is, I actually remember picking this up and thinking, oh, this is like kind of a nice sweater, and then looking at it and realizing that it's like I think it's like a Walmart brand. And I probably intended to put it back in the bins, and then it probably accidentally got back in our cart. But it sold relatively quickly. We didn't really make a lot of money on it. It's not something I would pick up again, but whatever. Anyway, the next item is a signed limited edition G. Harvey print. This is something, we actually own another business, and it was acquired from that business that we own. That business has been in our family for a really long time, and there's a bunch of old stock from that business that it no longer makes any money from. So the business that old stock just really no longer has any value to that business. So our eBay business has since acquired that stock and is selling it. And that print sold on best offer for $200. Next up is a Betsy Johnson women's dress that we had gotten at a garage sale for 50 cents. And we lovingly refer to this garage sale as the Mom's Gonna Be Mad garage sale because we're pretty sure that her daughter was selling us all the clothes and we were getting them like dirt cheap for like 50 cents a piece and stuff. And I think that when the mom had gone inside, and I think when she came back outside and found out how much the daughter sold all of the stuff to us for, she was gonna be mad. So this was one of the Mom's Gonna Be Mad sales. And we sold that dress for $28.48. And like I said, we had purchased it for 50 cents. Next up is a Table Topics card set, or like a game, or you put it on your coffee table and it has cards in it, and it's something that you can have, they initiate conversations. So that was new and packaged, and I had picked it up at a garage sale for $2, and it sold on best offer for $20. Next up was a pretty cool item. It was something that my husband found at the thrift store. It's called a Do Boo heated jacket. And it was actually an electric jacket that had like a heating element all through it. It had it through like the body of the jacket and in the arms, but it was missing its battery. So we took a risk on it. I think we maybe paid like $5 or $10 at the thrift store. And, but we weren't sure if it worked. So when we got home, we did some research on it and we purchased a battery for it through Amazon. And then we found out that it did work, and I actually wore it around the house for a little while. It was really nice. And then we listed it and sold it. But our all-in cost on that was, let's see, $40.68, and we sold it for $82.48. So while we didn't like have a huge profit on that, I'm glad to have learned about that jacket, because now I know how much it has the potential to sell for. If we can get it for cheap, again, with a battery, I would probably pick it up. But if it doesn't have a battery, it's not something that I would probably pick up, again, because of the expense of acquiring the battery. Next up was something that we got in the Goodwill bins, and it was a new in package set of party picks, like that you would use to skewer hors d'oeuvres or something like that. And so we had paid 92 cents for those, and they sold for $7.18. And we just always grab anything in the Goodwill bins that are new in package, because they historically always sell very well and pretty fast for us. And my theory on that is that people will have something that they've purchased at their local store, and then they need to have another one of those items. They go back to the store and they can't find it. And so then they turn to eBay and we have it. So I don't know if that's actually true, but you know, it's a dollar store item and it's sold on eBay now for $7.18. So that's my theory. Anyway, I'm sticking to it. Next up is a Vans women's extra small flannel shirt that, like, we've had forever. We literally got this shirt on the very first time that we went to a thrift store for our sourcing, and the pictures were terrible. It was kind of on our list of things to redo, but it sold before we got to that. So that sold for $18.68, and we had purchased it at a thrift store for $5. So we were glad that that went before we had to redo it. Next up is another item we've had in our store forever. It was an Abercrombie & Fitch down-filled puffer vest that sold on best offer for $24, and we had purchased it at a thrift store for $5.08. Next is something that we had an on. It was purchased for ourselves. It was purchased just for our home. It was a package of like furnace AC filters, and we bought the wrong size, and we intended to send them back to Amazon, but usually we get the returns in on time. I don't really know what happened in our lives that we didn't get them done. I don't know if we were leaving on a trip and we just missed the return window or what exactly happened, but for whatever reason we didn't get them back in time and missed the return window, and so we were like, well, we'll just sell them on eBay. But we had purchased those for $37.99 and sold them for $40.78. So we made no profit. We just considered it recouping some of our cost, and we did get positive feedback on that. So we just said, you know, well, there's that. That was kind of like a, well, at least there's that situation. So we were happy about that. Next up was a super interesting item. And I will definitely be on the lookout for these again come holiday time. It was called a Lightkeeper Pro. I found it at the local thrift store, and it was a tool. It was new in package, and it was a tool that you use to voltage test. It was for Christmas lights. You used to voltage test, remove broken lights, and replace bulbs on Christmas string lights. And I had purchased it for, let's see, $2.71. And I comped it in the store because I didn't know how much it was worth, and was like pleasantly surprised to see that people had it listed for $30 and it had a really good sell-through rate. So I got it back, and I thought that maybe it would sit in our store for a year because this was January. But I got so many offers on that thing. I mean, the offers were like rolling in, but they were all really lowball offers. So I was just declining offer after offer. And honestly, I got so tired of declining lowball offers that as soon as an offer that I deemed good enough came in, I accepted it, and that was for $22. But looking back on it now, I know I could have gotten a higher offer on that. I probably could have gotten closer to $30 for that item. I was just getting frustrated with all the lowball offers. I don't know why everybody was lowballing on that particular item. But definitely be on the lookout for that item around Christmas time because people want that thing. That is a very popular item. Next up is a item that we acquired from our other business. It's just old stock. It's a 3.5x5 bifold frame by the brand Car. It's sold on best offer for $20. Next up is a Playboy magazine from May 1967. We had acquired a large lot of vintage Playboy magazines from a seller on the Nextdoor app, and I thought they were going to have like a lot more value than they actually did. I was disappointed to find out that they were selling for as little as they are, because the condition of the magazines that we have, for the most part, considering the age, is pretty good, but it's not something that I would actively seek out again in the future. So we had paid $1.43 per magazine, and this particular issue sold for $9.38. Next up was a Banana Republic Falcon print shirt that sold for $22.99. We had gotten at a thrift store for $1.89. Next up was a green Gravedigger monster truck toy that we had gotten in a big bag of toys at our thrift store, and we sold that for $7.40, and we averaged our cost on that at 14 cents. And we have a thrift store here that this particular thrift store puts it jam packs toys into these huge bags. They're like this big, and they're just like packed with toys. There's so many in there, and they price them at like $4, and then we only buy those bags on half price day unless we see something amazing in there. So we get like real bargains on them, and we'll usually buy them for one item and then the other items in there sell. But we found that monster trucks sell every time we have them. So we've started looking for monster trucks because they sell immediately. I guess there's monster truck collectors out there. So this one's no exception. Next up was the cutest skirt, and it sat in our store forever, and I could not believe that it took so long to sell. But it was a Lane Bryant orange polka dot skirt. It sold for $29.98, and we purchased it for $7.57 at a thrift store. Next up was some shoes that we got in the Goodwill bins. They were the brand Born. They sold for $35, and we had purchased them for $1.68, sorry. Next was another Goodwill find, and it was a great find. It was a Motorola modem router combo. It was new in the package, all sealed up, brand new, never been used. So we had paid 92 cents because of our average, and it sold within days on best offer for $124.98. Yay! Next up was a brand I had never heard of, but I'm so glad to know about it now because it sells high, and I had a lot of interest in it. It was called Eris A, and it was a silk blend, like a kimono kind of shawl, one-size jacket, and it had beaded fringe on it. And I paid $3 for it at a garage sale, and it sold for $75 on best offer through the global shipping program, and it went to Australia. Next up was another monster truck, another Gravedigger, just a different color. It sold for $14.38, and we had paid 14 cents for it in one of those big bags. Next up was another magazine, but we had gotten like 7 boxes of magazines from a lady on the Nextdoor app who was giving just boxes of magazines away for free. So I had offered to come and take them off her hands, and there were lots of different magazines, a lot of real niche magazines. And so we got them all listed, and we've sold probably at least 15 at this point. So that was definitely worth it. And so we've got tons to sell still. So this one was the new Pioneer. It sold for $8.08, and our cost was $0. Next up was purchased at the Goodwill bins, and it was a giant floor puzzle for kids for the movie Monsters, Inc. It sold for $19.99, and our cost was 92 cents. Next up was something that we got at the local thrift store. It was new with tags, and it cost $8.02, and it sold for $50. But when I got it home, I realized that one of the seams was coming loose. It was kind of like a fitted scuba top, and then it kind of came out into a peplum, and one of those seams right before the peplum came out was loose and had a hole in it. So I sewed it, I repaired it on my sewing machine and listed it, and that was totally worth my time because it did sell for very quickly for $50. Next up was a pair of my old jeans. They were just Gap girlfriend jeans. Those sold for $20. Next up was actually at a garage sale where their prices were way overpriced. Like most of the clothes they had hanging, and they had listed for $10, $20, and I had tried to negotiate with them on a few things, and they were telling me how much they originally paid for them. And so, I'm always polite and just say, okay, no, thank you, but there was a box that was marked $1. So I was digging through that box, and I found this 100% leather women's vest. So I grabbed that, and it sold for $22.50. And, like I said, we only paid $1 for it. So even when you go to those garage sales that everything's marked high, you can usually still find something that's a good deal because, I think they mark things high that they have emotional attachment to. And obviously they had no emotional attachment to this leather jacket because it was a very nice leather jacket, and obviously someone wanted it. Next up was an item that belonged to my daughter. It was a Grayson Threads sweatshirt. It sold for $14 on best offer. Next up, we had gone to a garage sale and gotten a huge box of new in package McDonald's toys, like all from the 2000s. And our cost per item was 16 cents when we did the math. And this was one of those, and it was a National Geographic Arctic Fox. And it sold for $14.99, which was our full asking price. The next item we purchased at an estate sale. It was a vintage Lenox porcelain Mickey Mouse Christmas ornament, and I had gotten it for $5, and it sold for $19.98 on offer to buyer. And I'm not sure I mentioned this yet, but you'll see a lot of our offer to buyer, most of our offer to buyer purchases end in the number 8. And that's because for internal record keeping purposes, I always try to end my offers to buyers in the number 8 because that helps us know how successful that feature is. and we can kind of at a glance look at our sold items and see how many items ended in 8. So how many of those were a result of that feature. And it doesn't always work because people will counter back and we'll have a negotiation with some people. And of course they don't magically know that they need to end their negotiation counter offer in the number 8. But it, for the most part, helps us know that feature is working well for us. And this particular week, we had a lot ending in the number 8. The first week of January, offer to buyer was the number 1 selling strategy for us. That's not always the case, but this week it was super, super high. Okay, now I've forgotten where I am. So let me get caught back up here. Okay, next up was I had gotten a new iPhone and I just sold the old case. We just don't throw anything away, y'all. The idea of throwing something away and having it end up in the landfill just goes against everything I believe in. So I would rather waste my time, I guess, than waste putting something in the landfill, I guess. And I'd rather just break even on something and have somebody have something that they want than send something to the trash. I guess it just goes against my nature. So it may seem like a waste of my time to sell something for $5.99, which is what this iPhone case sold for, but somebody got an iPhone case that they wanted, and I think we made a few cents on it, and so that makes me happy. It makes me a lot happier than it would for this iPhone case to end up in the garbage. So that's my opinion about that. Take it or leave it. Next up was some shoes, and they were some shoes with some history, for us at least. It was a pair of Clark's Artisan shooties. They were real cute. When I picked them up in the thrift store, I thought, wow, these are really nice shoes. Had they been my size, I would have definitely kept them. So we had them in our store for a really long time before they actually sold. And then they sold to someone, and she opened an item as not described return. And I was like, what? These were really nice. What could possibly have been not described correctly about these? And I looked at the return, and it said that the shoes were not as described because they were too heavy. I was like, what? Like, that does not even make sense. How could I possibly have inaccurately described the heaviness of the shoes? So I was like, whatever. So she sent them back. I gave her money back. But that particular return and that particular item not as described return changed the way we do business, because that was the last in a string of many item as not described returns that were just kind of ridiculous. And I'm not even sure I remember what the reason that people had stated on the previous item as not described returns, but I was like, okay, now I've had enough. And we only now accept automatic returns if an item doesn't fit or if it's another valid reason. But if someone wants to open an item as not described return, they have to go through the process of my husband or I approving that return before they have permission to actually return it. So that whole business with the shoes being too heavy created a wave of change within the Nina's Jewels business model. And we're much better for it now, because I think that we've driven away people who were misusing that. And, I know some people really think that you should just accept returns no matter what, and just it should be flexible with buyers. But I do think that there's lots and lots of buyers that really misuse that item as not described feature. And so we've been better off since we've changed the way that we do that. So that's my opinion. What's your opinion? Let me know down in the comments below. So anyway, we did finally sell those shoes a second time. They sold for $35.18. And unfortunately, because of the whole debacle with the first heaviness, the out of pocket for us was $21.71. But we did get really good feedback from the second buyer who said the shoes were outstanding. So we were happy about that and glad to see them make their final destination and be in their happy forever home. Next up was a really cute little toddler dress. It was a patriotic 4th of July dress that I had gotten at a garage sale for $2, and it sold for $13.58. Next up was something that belonged to my husband. It was a Forgotten Realms book that was in our store forever, so I was happy that it sold finally for $28.99. Next up was something that belonged to the other business that we owned. I don't even know where they would have possibly acquired this sign, but it was really old. It was like literally a hand-painted sign that said grand opening, but it was in bad shape. It was really torn up around the edges, so even though it was really vintage, we couldn't get much for it because it was really, really torn. So we finally sold that and did so on best offer for $15. Next up was an Ed Hardy men's shirt with the heavy embroidery on the back. We sold that very quickly for $27.98. I think normally those shirts will fetch more, but this one was had a lot of wash wear and some pilling, and even though we cleaned it up with our fabric shaver, it still had some wash wear, so we lowered the price a little bit. Next up was a pattern that I don't have time to sew anymore. So I was just selling off all my patterns. It was an uncut pattern. It sold for $12.78. Next up was something that we had gotten when we were doing retail arbitrage. We picked this up at Big Lots when they were doing their Easter clearance. And it was a Peeps branded bath bomb. We were supposed to pay like 70 cents for it. But when we got it home and looked at the receipt, we saw that we paid actually like $3.25. So I think we may have lost money on it or just made like a few cents. So it sold for $7.99, but we ended up paying like $3.29 for it. So, whatever. Next up was another one of the free magazines. It was a Garden and Gun magazine, and it sold for $11.69. Next up was another McDonald's toy, but this one was one that we had gotten in one of our Happy Meals. So it was one of the Encanto toys. It sold for $7. And next was something that we had gotten in the Goodwill bins. It was a plush Darth Vader wearing an ugly Christmas sweater. And he sold for $16.99, and our cost was 92 cents. Okay, next, so my husband has like a really huge collection of 1980s and 1990s collectible cards that were just in his personal collection, and he has decided that he's ready to sell those, and we've been listing them for a long time. In fact, that's kind of what started our eBay business. But we sell those all the time, and we list them all the time. We've listed a bunch, but we still have lots to list. So they're just kind of one of the bread and butter items of our store. And I'm not going to go over individually which ones sold, but at the end of each of our What Sold videos, I'll go over how many cards sold and what the total was that sold. So this week we sold 20 cards for a total of $67.09. And that wraps up this What Sold video. So thank you so much for joining, and we will see you guys next time. All right, bye-bye.